economic structures, and they were inefficiently used. Even if resources existed, they were not being used properly. And second was high out-of-pocket costs. So what the survey found was there was close to 1,000 to 1,500 per month that was being spent, mainly for treatment and traveling to access to care, which this average amount is high for someone who's struggling with cost. And thirdly, the quality of care was very poor, right? So then the document also goes on to talk about certain recommendations to close this gap. So from the demand side, the recommendations were, excuse me, increase demand through active community engagement. Now, I really liked this concept because I am community, you are community. So there's something that we can do actually about this, right? Creating public awareness about mental health and strengthening the protection of human rights of people with mental disorders as well as those of their families. So basically, there is a call to make this as humanizing as possible, right? To not just look at people as cases, as disorders to be treated. Supply side. From the supply side, also there were certain recommendations, which was one, to integrate mental health into primary care. What do you mean by primary care? Primary care is the first point of contact that you go to when you want to seek help, right? So general physicians or even just general doctors. How do you integrate mental health into that particular structure? Next was increasing the availability and distribution of the mental health force through capacity building and task sharing. So, what do you mean by capacity building? You basically equip the mental health force in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, right? And task sharing, you ensure that the tasks are divided, okay, so that there's delegation, there is better coordination, things like that. Increasing the financing, that's the obvious, the biggest thing ever. There are a lot of news articles that talk about how the mental health care budget is not sufficient and there needs to be, an increase in financing. Scaling up existing services. So there are existing services like the district mental health program, but they sort of function in a isolated manner. How do you just scale them up in a way that it can be generalized, it can be applied at a more larger scale? Developing mental health management information systems to monitor their progress towards implementation, right? So information system and information management becomes extremely important because India is a huge country and you need to be able to coordinate things to ensure that there is implementation in a way that you want it to happen, right? The last one is developing innovative mental health services to reach remote areas. Now, this is also something which really piqued my interest because now this is a call for more entrepreneurship opportunities, people putting forth new ideas to ensure that services can go to the remote areas as well. So when I highlight certain things on the slide, I would want you to sort of take a note of it because I will be using these as key points to leverage later on. Right. So now I was like, okay, Nimans did a survey and this is what their findings and recommendations were. I just wanted to sort of dwell a bit more deeper into how the mental health systems in India was functioning, right? So this amazing article came up. It's 2019, so very, very recent. Also, please just feel free to take pictures of this so that you can go and read them up again because I'm not sure if the slides will be shared or not. So gaps. So essentially, this flowchart is for you to understand where the problems come in, seep in, things like that. So on a wider scale, let's just think about this. There seems to be problems in the most of the problems seem to lie in the psychosocial domain, right? From what we've seen. But even if I want to sort of counter what I'm saying, most of the studies that are happening investigating these gaps, they look only at treatment gaps, as in they focus on the certain subset of population that is at the risk. I mean, that is at a mental illness stage, or let's say has been diagnosed with a mental illness. And we do know that um, mental health and mental health problems isn't just the subcategory or the category of mental illness only, right? There's also a huge part of the population that seems to have certain levels of mental health problems, but it's not to the point where it's that severe, where they would have to go for treatment to a therapist. Um, so on this line, right, where is the research that talks about bridging that gap, right? The gap of the huger subset that, let's say, is having small problems which might eventually move on to a severe mental health issue. So, something to think about, right? Now, when we look at all of these papers and recommendations, they always come from a top-down model, right? Increase services, increase the resources. Government should do some campaign to increase awareness. Basically, urging authorities to do something. Although that's really good, most of these recommendations fail to point out what individuals can do, right? Individuals like you and me can do to actually um, help solve this gap, because this is not just a government problem, right? It's a you and me problem as well. So are top-down solutions the only solutions? Do I just sit here and wait for something to happen? And the answer is, can we maybe just try going bottom up for change? Can we look at solutions that we as individuals can implement, we as college students can implement within colleges, right? Can we think of ways to do that? And the answer is yes. Okay. When I digged a bit deeper, I looked into this model, which was put forth by WHO. Again, if you just Google this exact thing, you will get the well-written PDF that explains this in much more detail, and also put adds in more resources. But let's just have a look at this model, right? So we see this is some pyramid with specialist services on the top, like the professional services on the top. Then, certain informal services or self-care services that you can do in the bottom. And then what are these two arrows on the side? So this indicates the frequency of need, right? So you see that the frequency of need of these sort of um, services becomes high, but as you go up, it's lower. Essentially, also because the number of services available on the higher scale is lower. And now, when you look at costs as well, right? So this specialized services and things like that, they're much more expensive, obviously. But informal community care and things such as self care are very low cost. And these are things that can be implemented to maintain good mental health, right? To ensure that it doesn't go to the point of mental illness. Um, so when I really looked into this, I was like, okay, now this bottom two is something that which we can definitely do something about, as individuals, as people who want to make a change, right? And so, which is why I think we need to look into informal support systems. It's extremely important if you want to create a community of support, and it's very easy to implement, and it can be done from an individual to a group level as well, right? So what does it mean to have an informal support network, right? So I just wanted to see, okay, is there any examples of this such community engagement in research? Is there anything that talks about it? So came across this wonderful case study slash intervention, which was basically, so Atmyata intervention approach was something that was implemented in a rural village in Maharashtra. And we will delve slightly a bit deeper into this because I feel there are certain basic tenets which are very scalable, which we can implement even in small communities like colleges. So, what is Atmyata, right? Atmyata means sharing compassion in Marathi. And so, what this program essentially tried to do is they tried to establish a care pathway for mental health treatment, and they did this in a two-tier network manner. So, what do you mean by two-tier? They're two sets of groups that would interconnect with each other, right? So, we had Atmiyata Mitras and Atmiyata Champions. So, who were Atmiyata Mitras? So, these were people who received less training than the champions. They provided information to community members on general well-being, on healthy lifestyle management, and they referred people they assess as maybe in distress or having mental health issues to the champions. And what do the champions do? The champions would be trained. They were trained to provide evidence based, low intensity counseling techniques like active listening, problem solving, and behavioral activation. So, what does behavioral activation means? Basically, having a behavioral change. So, in addition to that, they would also facilitate access to mental health care and social benefits such as disability benefits and unemployment benefits. Continuing, they were also trained on how to recognize whether a community member required a referral to a professional based on the signs and symptoms of a mental disorder and when to assess if care needs were more severe. Right, and when they felt that there was a need, they would refer to them as well as accompany them to the district psychiatrist and district mental health center for more specialized mental health care. So and to me, right, when I looked at it, it's like, okay, wow, this is what people generally need, right? When they're trying to trying to seek therapy, they want support. They want support of people who are to an extent knowledgeable about mental health care systems, right? Who can connect them to professional help when needed, who can give them basic solutions when they feel like they are stressed, things like that. So, the things that intrigued me about this specific intervention were that the volunteers were not professionals, right? They were not specifically from a psychology background only, and that they could be trained, right? So they're basically people like you and me. Given that there are also people in this webinar who are outside a mental health, background, and there was considerably less stigma, right? And why is there less stigma with these volunteers? Because their roles are informal and their roles are voluntary, right? Creates more trust, creates more connection, uh, and it's more authentic, right? Than a professional coming and helping you, because technically you feel it's a professional's job to come and help you, but with volunteers is different. The sort of connection you make and the approach that you have to them, right? And the other thing about this intervention was that it moves away from the expert driven biomedical model with more emphasis on a psychosocial approach, right? So, why do I say expert driven biomedical model? Because this is how treatment and closing gaps has been approached. It's been approached from a let's increase the number of professionals and things will be okay. That's not how it works, right? Especially in a country like India, where the population is so huge, it is going to take years to meet the gap of professional help. So these are models that can be, implemented easily, uh, faster, way faster as well. And from a psychosocial perspective, because as we saw in that previous flow chart, right, most of the barriers were psychosocial barriers, right? Most of them. So this approach really helps to combat that the set of barriers. And at the end, it also does not undermine the need for treatment for severe illnesses, right? So the champions, but they're not saying that we're going to replace professional help for you. They're saying if they do need a severe, severe, if they are at a severe stage of illness, they do help them to connect them to a professional, right? So which is why I was like, okay, these certain basic tenets of this model are very, very interesting. So this next part is another, I will say, sort of a case of an online platform that promises to do something like this, and promises to give an informal support network. So LoanPack is an NGO which is based off in Chennai, and they have recently, launched this website called LoanPack Buddy, and it's a system where users are connected to listeners, and these listeners are people who can give you emotional support. Yeah, basically, imagine a friend who is good with empathy, good with active listening, and cares about your problems, right? Because not all of us can always go to a friend, because the dynamics of friendships are a bit different, right? But here, right, you you know that you can share what you want to share in a safe and non-judgmental space where it promises anonymity as well. So an online system. So given that now we are in a pandemic, right? This system really, I was like, okay, very interesting. Um, Beyond this, how can I say that it's similar to Atmyata or not similar to Atmyata? So Atmyata's purpose was something completely different, right? It was about uh, people in the community, helping them bridge the gap. But LoanPack is a bit different. The LoanPack Buddy system is a bit different in that it functions on an online platform, and it just promises, a listening ear. That's it. But still, it helps in creating the concept of informal support systems. So when I was thinking of how to, tie this together uh, with me, with people like me, people who want to help. So I was like, okay, let's just focus on the young people demographic. And we have seen a lot of statistics that say that young people are vulnerable. In fact, a lot of them are at risk for suicide. And so I was like, okay, let's go to research again. Because if you look at my initial survey, it was people in the 18 to 25 demographic, and they gave all those barriers. And I was like, okay, let me just go into a much more standardized research and see what's up. And I found this paper. It's slightly old, like 2007, but had certain insights which it gave me, and I was blown away by it. So the paper was, when and how do young people seek professional help for mental health problems? Very interesting. Um, so we'll just don't get overwhelmed. Let's just go from left first. So on the left side, right, it said that they were more inclined to seek help for mental health problems if they have some knowledge about the mental health issues and the sources of help. They feel emotionally competent to express their feelings, have established and trusted relationships with potential help providers, right? And it really sort of connected to the responses I received as well. Now, if you go to the right side, right, people are less likely to seek help if they are experiencing suicidal thoughts and depressive symptoms, and if they hold negative attitudes towards seeking help or have had negative past experiences with, these sources of help, or if they hold beliefs that they should be able to sort out their own mental health problems on their own, right? While I'm looking at it, something that came jarring to me was this part, right? They're less likely to seek help if they have, are experiencing suicidal thoughts and depressive symptoms, which is exactly the opposite of what we want. We want people who are, at the severe stage to actually reach out for help, but they're not reaching out for help. So how do we reach this unreachable, uh, this unreachable crowd? Um, so something to think about, right? suicide helplines are for them, but if they don't want to use the helplines, how do you make them use the helplines? Like why do they not want to use the helplines? So it's a bit actively listen to what they have to say, right? And just let them talk about what they want. So I was an informal support system for them. And given that I had a background in psychology with certain level of information on how all of this process works, I was able to, convert in this person literally really know about those things. So, let's just start. So, I'm just going to give you screenshots of actual articles that I read, which inspired me and which helped me understand this a bit better. So, the first one, just take pictures of this so that you can go read it up later. Is where Mr. Vivek talks about how bridging the gap in India's mental health care is. So I will start with standalone articles, right? If you're someone who just wants to read one thing, one article to understand, that's fine. You can start from here, right? This second article by Huffington Post, which talked about why is it so hard to find good mental health care in India. Very well, very well written because it brings out personal viewpoints as well, which I absolutely appreciated. Next, this article by Business Line, which talks about the huge gap in India's mental health budget. Right, so this will sort of give you an idea of what the budget looks like and where exactly are we falling short. Um, right. And did you guys know that mental illness is actually covered under health insurance? And this um, came into implementation after the Mental Health Care Act of 2017, which I also recommend you guys all to go read it. It's a good way to keep yourself educated about what the laws are, what the policies is in the country, so that you can tell other people as well. So read up on this mental health care insurance. And for those of you who want to dwell a bit deeper into research, a bit further reading, this wonderful article, which is on the APA, there is a paywall, but if you have access, well, fair enough, you can read it. But it's, how you can empower the community to take action by building mental health literacy. It's a good read as well. I'm hoping all of you are taking pictures because these are just screenshots, right? And this amazing, huge, detailed document by the Mariwala Health Initiative. So the Mariwal Health Initiative is again an NGO that functions in India, and they started this campaign a few years ago called bridging the gap care gap by reframing it, and they really delve deep into the problems of a biomedical approach and how we need to sort of shift to a psychosocial approach and how we can do that. Also they talk about a few case studies, so definitely go read up on this if you'd like to. And obviously any health resource cannot be complete without the WHO itself. So WHO as a mental health gap action program, they have brought out a number of good, resources such as intervention guides, implementation guides, what people can do. They've tried, tested a bunch of models as well. So these are resources that are openly available in the internet, which you can just go take out and read, right? Very resourceful. The second part is actually to volunteer. Now, volunteering is something which we have not encouraged to the point that we should have, uh, amongst us in colleges, things like that, because volunteer comes from a place of I want to do something, but I don't want anything in return, for it. And this is something which we need to think about, because volunteer action is one way to actually just bridge the gap. Source help from people who want to help, right? Who just are okay with taking their extra time off to help. So recently my HOD did share about helpline volunteering, telecounseling, things like that. Again, these programs are made in a way where you are trained for a specific period of time, and then you're literally on there on the field and helping out. So which really brings it to the point where you don't really need to be a professional to volunteer, right? To just volunteer to help people out, you just need to have certain level of important skills and training for that part. And yeah, most of the opportunities do give you that training before you actually go on the field. So just make sure that you check out any volunteering opportunities, even while you're at home, stuck at COVID. You can always do the helpline volunteering part of it, because right now the helplines are so bad. Most of them are down because no one is there at the center itself. So please look into that. Right. And this was a certain, I'll say, bunch of recommendations which I thought, based on the models that I discussed and the cases I discussed, that we could, in a way, replicate in colleges, because colleges are the right? And given that when we talk about youth mental health problems, and you see youth in colleges, so the best place to really start is this. So how do we go about it? So I'll say the basic tenets for any volunteer system or a support system of student volunteers would be to first train them, or to have a proper training program where you can teach them low intensity counseling skills like we saw in the Atmyata model, which involves empathy, active listening, problem solving, and behavioral activation, right? And then you ensure that you train them to be able to provide that safe and non-judgmental space. And this is the terms have been overused in psychology, but I don't think we've really understood how important they are. Skills of empathy. It's so difficult, but it can only come from a place where you don't see the person as a case or as uh, a diagnosis, right? It comes from you seeing the person as a person who wants your help. So just providing that space, right? And these volunteers should also be, active disseminators of psychoeducation, in the sense they should be very well aware of the misconceptions that one may have about mental health problems, the fear of therapy, diagnosis, etc. So all of these things can be very well taught to anyone, right? Literally anyone who wants to help or who wants to be a volunteer. So, and they should also be educated about all mental health related policies, social security benefits, mental health insurance, things like that. And the last point I feel is also the most important part of it. I will say the last point is something which actually literally anyone can do, which is read up on, what it means to go to therapy. How do you help them? How do you help people set realistic expectations for therapy? Right, how do you make sure that they know that how a first therapy session might go, um, I mean, the most realistic expectation that you could tell them is that they will not find the right therapist in the first try itself, because as they're searching a therapist, it's kind of like searching for a partner in a way, because you are going to sit there and be sharing some deepest, darkest problems that you might have. So you want to know, you want to be able to trust this person, right? So it takes a while to get that match. That's that sort of expectations, right? A lot of people are not aware of it. So creating those sort of expectations, connecting them with professionals, right? Actually, as psychology students, we have a good network where we can reach out to professionals, right? We can keep ourselves updated about which professionals are giving therapy at a concession rate. Let's say for students, because there are professionals like that out there. In addition to that, there are always lists that are circulating in the internet, like a list of therapists who offer, with their price quoted, with their discipline quoted, and their ways of counseling quoted as well. So I receive a lot of those lists, and I'm pretty sure a bunch of you have as well. Now, essentially, when someone actually reaches out to you saying that they want to see a therapist, you don't shove a list in their face. That's not how it goes, because that can get overwhelming for anyone, right? So you start with actually telling them that, okay, this is how it's going to be. These are the things you might have to look into. For example, gender. Are you comfortable with a certain gender? Is there a specific budget that you're going to set for yourself? It goes from that place, and then you together figure out, in that list, who is going to be almost a good match for you, right? And when that happens, and let's say if they're on the call, right? Uh, because anyone who's calling a therapist or wanting to is super nervous. So can you, as a support, as an informal support, be there during that call, because so that you can help them set what a realistic expectation is for those calls as well, right? So as a volunteer, or even as a person who wants to help someone uh, be better, right? Can you answer these questions? When to seek therapy? Can you answer these questions? When to seek therapy? Where to look for therapists? How to plan for therapy? What are the options available? What's the difference between the various titles? What do I do if I have a bad experience? What are the laws of reporting mental health professionals, right? Are you aware about this part? Is the question. Um, so, just to sort of summarize, or keep a to summarize what I have said throughout the presentation, is that yes, there is a gap in mental health care, and this gap is not just the responsibility of governments and professionals to be filled. It is also the responsibility of people like you and me who are very passionate about mental health, right? There are ways that you can close this gap through individual efforts as well, by educating yourself, so that whenever anyone comes to you seeking for help, you don't sit there blinking. Sorry. Whenever anyone comes to you seeking help, you can actually be there and guide them through the process, right? So, so there is a certain level of community engagement that can help bridge the gap, right? So beyond this, this is the end of my presentation. I will be entertaining questions and feedback. If you can hold for a while, I will put out a link on the chat, and I would like for you to um, put your questions in that link. Right. Let me. Right. So I have pushed a link on the chat. So if you have any questions, any feedback, anything that you want to say as well, maybe you can say it. I won't be able to hear you. I'm really sorry. But if you can put your question in this link, I'll be able to read it. Right. Um, Now I will wait in awkward silence while someone talks, maybe. Yeah, even if someone talks, I might not be able to hear you. So I'll just, it's okay. Talk ahead. Right. So if you start typing in that link, your questions will start popping here. So I'm just going to sit here and wait and see for your questions to pop. If you're not able to, if you're having any issues, can you just uh, write them down in the Meet chat? I will be able to entertain that too. I feel so bad that I can't hear people. I would love to hear engagement and discussion. Right. So I'm done with my presentation for the day. So just type in your questions there. So how can we make the broken people to overcome their problems? Right. Honestly, you can't make them overcome their problem. They will figure it out while they are talking to you about it. Uh, right. And I will say just work on your empathy and active listening skills. So, if you would like for this to be a follow up, I can do a follow up webinar where I really jump into the details of the whole aspect of how I can help someone. What are the different things which I should be aware of? What does it mean to be there for someone, to be an active listener? I can definitely jump into that as a follow up webinar as well. So do let me know if you would like that too. Um, so how to bring an employee with a psychological problem to a counselor? Uh, you cannot obviously drag them to a counselor. You will have to try to understand what is stopping them from seeing a counselor, right? Because everyone has certain apprehensions of their own, and which are equally important, right? And once you figure out what it is that's stopping them, see if that is something which you will be able to meet as a solution, right? um, I hope I answered your question. um, can you explain or brief about health insurance and resources to know about it? Okay, so actually, there's a lot to talk on that, which is why if there is a follow up, I will definitely delve into it deeper. But right now, what you can do is actually Google is a really good resource for this. Uh, just type in Mental Health Care Act 2017, health insurance, mental health insurance. You will definitely come up with a lot of resources for it. Okay. I just mentioned it in my PPT as a way for you guys to go and read up more on this and educate yourself, because I felt just knowing that there's actually insurance is something that's new for us in a way. So, what is your opinion about providing online counseling? Will it be effective or really helpful for the person with the problem? Um, okay, so right now, right, we're in a pandemic situation where literally face-to-face counseling is not possible. So there are actually counselors, psychotherapists, clinical psychologists who do provide online counseling, and with certain, I would say, precautions, right? There are resources out there. I will see if I can link them, but there are certain guidelines that it's good for you to consider when you're providing online counseling. I'm hoping question is coming from someone who's a practicing counselor. Do not say that you're going to give counseling if you are not a professional. Okay, this is the point of being an informal support system is not that you're going to sit there and say I'm going to give you counseling. I am qualified. No, you're just going to be there as someone who can employ empathy and active listening. So, okay, how do we know someone needs therapy? Um, is the problem affecting their daily routine, right? Is it affecting them to the point where it's always in the back of their head, right? Is it affecting to the point where they feel unhappy about certain parts of their life, right? Um, Beyond this, I think I can refer you to a resource which says APA has certain, I'll say, questions which they've framed as questions that people can ask themselves to decide whether they need therapy. You can just go Google APA when to seek therapy. You will find them. In medical psychiatric, how to break the bad news to the people in smooth way. Any tips and tricks? Um, Honestly, there is no smooth way to this. The only smooth thing you can do is actually just be there while the person is processing that bad news, right? Because no matter how hard we say we understand, we will never understand, but we can always try to understand, right? Um, from the other person's point of view and what their problem is. So breaking a bad news, there's no smooth way to it. Just do it and uh, help that person process it. The session was really impactful. Thank you so much. Now my question really is like what efforts can we take to reach those people who are likely not to seek help for their mental health problems? Um, be a friend to them, right? Be a friend, check up on them. Don't wait for them to reach out to you. So this is something which I have seen as a trend on the internet where my DMs are open, you can come talk to me, yada yada. No, the- people are not going to come talk to you. You have to go talk to them, right? As soon as you see certain indicators that this person may not be really doing well, let me just check up on them, right? So that initiative is something that is much appreciated by people who feel really alone, right? So start from there. You start uh, from your end. Ask this person, hey, how was the day for you today? And just gauge and go from there and be actively present, right? Don't do it because you have to do it. Do it because you care for the person, right? That's how it works. You have to. There needs to be a certain level of empathy that you have to employ here. Um, what are the measures should be taken to have a healthy mind? You know what? It's the basic tenets. I'll say have a good support system. Um, if you don't, see if you can reach out for to people who you feel will listen to you, who will care about you, right? Eat well, sleep well. I know I'm gonna sound like a mom, but this is actually true, right? Like sleep is so important. We shouldn't really undermine it, but honestly, just love yourself. Like start from there. Love your life. Um, just just try to do things that make you happy, right? Indulge in certain hobbies. See if you can take up new activities that will keep you interested in life as well. It helps with the healthy mind part of it. The session is wonderful. Thank you. How do we avoid slash remove the stigma around therapy and getting psychological help? You avoid and remove the stigma by actually talking about it, right? Talk about it to everyone in your circles. Like my friends have seen me talk about mental health so many times that they understand that I am open to to anyone wanting to talk about mental health problems. So the thing is, you have to put yourself out there as a person who is proactive about mental health, who's proactive about therapy and getting psychological help. Only when you put that image out there, that's how you can normalize the this aspect, and you can curb stigma. How would you use Atmyata technique in smaller communities like colleges and schools? Okay, so when I looked at Atmyata, right, so the purpose of the model was obviously different, but I would say the basic tenets such as training volunteers from any background in that. So basically, colleges can start with creating training programs that focus on giving these low in those low intensity counseling techniques such as empathy, active listening, right? Make specialized modules on how to talk to people about sensitive issues, such as how to be queer affirmative, giving out knowledge about what it means to be a LGBT person. It's like a bunch of sensitized knowledge, training in the basic skills of counseling such as empathy and active listening, making sure that the volunteers are educated in so and so policies and programs. They're educated about how therapy functions. The volunteers are connected with actual professionals, which is easier to help them connect to proper professional help. So essentially, colleges need to take up the onus of, I say, training, providing training, or they could also get training from outside. It's just that start with creating volunteer communities on this, but make sure that these volunteers come from a place of, I want to do this, not that I'm going to force you to be a volunteer. That doesn't work, right? Additionally, I would say something that I've been pondering about it. One of the responses when I had from my mini survey was that someone said that they had a good experience with a college counselor and they were able to get help. But I also had a response which said that they did try to go to the college counselor, but it didn't work out. It didn't fit well for them, and hence they stopped going to therapy. So one recommendation would be for any institution or even from a very larger scale is to have more than one counselors in colleges and schools, right? We should be able to give students a choice to go. We shouldn't force them to only go to one college counselor or one person. So something that institutions can ponder over. Yeah. I want to volunteer but don't know anything about it. Where should I start and how can I choose a right institution? You are in a part of which volunteering community? Right. Good question. I don't know where to start. So I think it can start from just within your academic circles. You can talk to your professors, your friends, ask them around about any volunteering opportunities that they have. Me personally, I volunteer as a listener on the Lone Pack Buddy platform. It's a very, very basic platform where we're just starting out. So the training programs are very, very, under revision and things like that. So they're just taking in people who are already good at these skills. But there isn't a lessening of all. There's always opportunities out there. Just go Google in and talk to your, the places that you interned at, right? Call them up, ask them, hey, do you want someone who can do free work for you? I will be there. So just approach places that you've already approach places that you have seen. NGOs are best place to start, right? They always need volunteers. Does sleeplessness relate to mental health like anxiety? This question I do not understand. Yes, sleeplessness does affect mental health a lot, and it there is research that says that it can, affect anxiety and anxiety related issues as well. I have, if you want something that's more specific, you can definitely reach out to me in mail, and I will link you to articles that will say the same. Okay, mail. I hope you guys took a picture of the last slide. So My mail is divyachavli@gmail.com, Divyachavally. You can reach out to me at mail, or you can also reach out to me via LinkedIn. I am on there as well. Just send me your message. How can we encourage an emphasis on the fact that counselors are actually necessary in educational institutes? Don't you think this too will play a part in bridging the gap? Yes, it is. It is so needed. Just imagine one counselor for a college or a school of thousands. Like, how does that work? The numbers are staggering. The ratio is so staggering. It's just my God. Yes, we can do that by raising a voice, right? Like this, um, write letters, draft letters, talk to your principals, talk to your HODs, tell them that this is what they need is. Beyond that, there needs to be a larger movement among institutions themselves and among within government sectors for this as a need, right? We have a lot of association bodies in psychology, and I absolutely encourage all those associations to take this as an important problem, which we definitely need to address. What can be the online courses for psychology or counseling taken by first UG Psych now, which could be understood by us? Okay, great. Coursera has a bunch of courses. In fact, PSG recently initiated this thing where you can do courses for free if you use their link. If you are doubtful about it, just approach the HOD of the psychology department and you will know about it. But basically, there is one course which I recommend is the psychological first aid course in Coursera. Um, it's a course by John Hopkins University. I don't remember the guy's name, but I'm sure a lot of people in my circles have done that course, and I also did that course, and I feel it was really, really good for people who are just starting out and who want to know more about mental health first aid. It was essentially designed for healthcare workers on the front line, like the crisis workers. But I feel it did a really good job in talking about the empathy and the active listening skills. So you can definitely check it out. Um, do sleeplessness the night and oversleeping in the morning lead to mood disorders? Now, does it lead? No, because this is not a very cause effect sort of a relationship. Uh, does it influence? Yes, it does. Because there's a certain biology that happens within you when you talk about sleep. Certain hormones are released that also influence your mood. So everyone go sleep, okay? Don't stay awake and don't wake up late also. Go sleep. Like listen to your parents. Okay. Are there any other questions that you guys would like to type out? I would say sleep by 12 o'clock max or even 11 max. Like if you can do 11 as well, by 12 at least, by midnight. Just do it. If you want techniques, tips to sleep, email me. I will send you all that you need to do because I struggled with getting into a good sleep schedule as well, and I'm pretty successful at this point. Or just like hit me up on LinkedIn. Everyone go create a LinkedIn account as well so that you can message me on LinkedIn. If I want to like go back and check. Right. So this is my mail ID, and that's my LinkedIn. And it's the same name on LinkedIn as well. So you can definitely message me on there. Um, right. So is there anything else that you're looking at? Right. Feel free to mute me whenever uh, whenever someone else is going to talk because I have no idea if anyone is talking. Yes, I'm giving the liberty to the host to mute me if you are planning to end the session at any point of time. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So seeing that there is no more questions, I am so happy I am on time. Because I have a tendency to go beyond time. A lot of people know that in my life. So, great. Good job, me. Harshita, just mute me. Mute me.
Y- Yeah, yeah, yeah. 1 minute.
Or I'll
Like,
mute myself. Never
yeah,
mind.
yeah. Thank you so much, Divya. That was an awesome session. Like, a good number of questions there for you as well. So I know you cannot hear us, but you can still get back to our YouTube live. The stream will still be there. You can listen to, what we have to say to you. So with that, we come to the end of the third session of the Student Self Development Program webinar series. So we would first like to thank the management of PSG College of Arts and Science for the opportunity. We would like to thank our respected secretary, sir, our respected principal, ma'am, our dear HOD, ma'am, for the opportunity and encouragement they have been giving us constantly throughout the whole process. A big thank you to all our participants for being so patient, and we are aware there were technical difficulties. We received multiple queries from y'all. We tried our best to address all of them. We look forward to seeing you in the next session as well, which begins at 4 p.m. It's on Mandala and its effectiveness. We hope to give you a better learning experience next time, without the technical difficulties. We will try our best to rectify the same. And most important of all, our resource person for the day, Ms. Divya Chavli. It was an awesome session, a very insightful session, a need of the hour session. There's a lot of talk about why mental health is important. There are platforms which try to create awareness about mental health, but so many research articles and examples, you gave us a whole new insight of how one should create awareness about mental health and how we should bridge that gap which you were talking about. So, once again, thank you to all our participants. We look forward to meeting you all in the next session. The feedback link for this session will be shared in the WhatsApp group which you all are part of. So, please do fill in the feedback form as it is a prerequisite for you all receiving the e certificates. Once again, thank you so much. With that, we wind up the session.